Welcome to an awesome edition of Rebellion's educational series. I'm Alexander Fleiss, CEO of the firm and host of the show. Today we have Alexander Vore, CEO of 3D Printing Corporation, coming on to teach us about the future of 3D printing. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you.
Our pleasure's all ours. So what excites you the most about 3D printing?
Oh yeah, I think that would definitely be the promising future.
Are we talking about a future where you can build houses, guns, everything? Is there anything that can't be built with 3D printing? How about that? Let's start with what you can do.
I mean, yeah, it's going to depend a little bit how you define 3D printing, but as much as I love food, for example, I don't think food 3D printing will ever really get there.
Oh, wonderful! Oh, it's very interesting to know. I was hopeful for that. You're not speaking generally about fake chicken. You're just saying 3D printed food is
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, because I mean, I'm the fake chicken's going to get there. That's for sure, or whatever fake thing.
Fake and biologically lab grown, yeah.
Right, and but definitely, you're not gonna 3D printing is never gonna replace some of the traditional cooking methods.
So, what gigantic company is in trouble because of 3D printing? What company first comes to mind as something that's going to have issues over the next 5 to 10 years because of 3D printing's renaissance? Potential renaissance.
Well, I think the traditional aerospace companies that have not really taken advantage of 3D printing yet are falling behind like 4 or 5 years now. That's going to be pretty serious because I think as competition heats up in that sector, if they don't catch up, performance is really everything. So I think some of those companies are in trouble. I would say.
Well, what aerospace company has embraced 3D printing?
What aerospace company hasn't embraced?
Which company has embraced 3D printing?
I don't have any inside information on this, but from my observation, looking at their designs and what they've put out, and I don't know how much they've published about this publicly, but SpaceX is pretty strong in 3D printing.
Oh, very awesome. Great to hear. So who else is in trouble besides aerospace?
China. That's my opinion. I mean, not just
their manufacturing base, you think, is in trouble because of on-site manufacturing that'll be available with 3D printing?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a tough word to say, but I think globalism might be in trouble in general.
Wow, very interesting concept to bring here.
Right, because so basically, my background is in economics, and I got really interested in 3D printing because of the economic aspect of it, actually. And I don't think people realize just how dependent the world is on, for example, cheap labor, and then shipping. Basically a factory designing and capitalizing in a cheap labor market, and then shipping the products or the fruits of that labor overseas. I think a lot of countries have gotten rich and companies from that kind of process. But traditionally, economies were much more local in the past. And I think that there's kind of maybe you can think of it as like a curve, but.
So you see a return to a local economy through technological advancements, i.e. 3D printing, which allows maybe a construction site to print their materials on site instead of having to order materials from a distributor in California, right. Canada, Singapore, right. Who knows?
Right. I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed. And I think my argument is logically is like this, because this is kind of a very future prediction. I think, I just use a simple analogy of like the Star Trek replicator. If you had a Star Trek replicator, you would never globally produce something, because the transaction cost would always
Of course. The shipping, the transaction cost, of course, it makes no sense. If you had a replicator, without a doubt, you're cutting out so much of the global manufacturing economy.
Right,
That's a
right. So,
great point.
on one side of it, you could look like manufacturing is a replicator. Like that's like the ultimate manufacturing technology. You're like Earl Grey hot, and you get your Earl Grey. Um, but if you get the closer you get to that, the closer manufacturing becomes to the end user, and hence I think 3D printing is going to be a big step in that. So what we might actually see is the death of some of the global economies, and then to your first point, maybe shipping companies might also be in trouble.
Will
Some of the
3D
largest.
printing cause the death of globalism? Wow, I did not expect that concept coming on today. I was excited to learn about your firm's technology, but now we're talking about something far more exciting. I mean, I'm sure your firm's technology is fantastic as well, but we're talking about global implications here, which are beyond any individual man or company. No, very,
Right.
very interesting insight you bring. Thank you so much. So let's talk about your company specifically, though. What are
Okay.
you guys aiming to do?
Well, we're really trying to build an alternative supply chain in Japan for manufacturing. So I think what that means, I guess, going back to the globalism point a little bit.
Housing, what specific manufacturing?
Mostly like a
Mm-hmm.
heavy industry, automotive, and aerospace. But I think in general, the 3D printing supply chain is a little bit different than traditional supply chain. So I don't know if it's so clearly segmented like a traditional
Yeah, please
supply.
explain yourself. Yeah.
Oh, well, sure. When you segment, when you think about a manufacturing supply chain, you typically think of like you've got a tier like 3 or 4 guy who's making a single screw or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then the single screw goes up the chain to another company that's producing a stand for a microphone, and they use that screw to go into their microphone, and then they sell the stand assembly maybe to a final microphone assembler, and then the final microphone assembler maybe even sells it to the company that designed and markets the microphone. So you typically have a manufacturing supply chain that looks like that. But the reason you have that is because generally, just very generally speaking, tooling is very expensive. So one company specializes in manufacturing screws, so they invest in the tooling and machines to very cheaply mass manufacture screws. So not everybody, I mean, manufacturing economy is huge, right? Like all the things we touch
Will
and
3D printing be able to make the screws, the stand, everything at the end of the day, or only
uh,
pieces of it?
um, that yeah no yes and no. So that question is a little bit like that's
Or
like a little
rather,
bit
how
like
much of the manufacturing economy will 3D printing wipe out in time?
my guess is probably something around 20 to 30% over the next 50 years. Um,
Okay.
and and then but I think to your point, it's a little bit like we're talking about cars, and then you're asking like, well, if you've got this electric wagon, what are you going to feed my horses with or something. It's not so much that we're going to 3D print screws, it's that we're going to create designs that don't necessarily need screws because they incorporate 3D printing techniques.
Oh, great point. So, a lot of middlemen and initial manufacturers are going to be in trouble here. And I guess you're seeing a future where 3D printers will partner with the designer of the actual system itself so that their system can be printed via your printer on site, wherever that site is that, necessitates that equipment.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. I think generally speaking, you're going to get manufacturing that is more in touch with the people that are actually using the things that you're making.
So is Japan ahead of the curve in 3D printing?
No, no, no.
What country would
Probably
you say?
around. What's that?
What country is leading the curve in 3D printing?
U.S. U.S. is probably number one. Germany's doing pretty good. Yep. Those are probably
But
top.
Japan being a very rich economy, if they're behind the curve, obviously that's an ideal place for you to operate.
That's the theory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the business is the style, the economy is very different. So that you have a lot of macro concerns to think about, but that's part of my theory. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, this has been a fantastic show. I guess before we conclude, I've got to ask about the nefarious aspect. Do you see 3D printing being taken by bad actors, whether it's organized crime, terrorism, or North Korea-esque, to create weapons that they were not able to create prior?
Not in the next 10 years, because right now it's so skill intensive, that, I mean, let me put it this way. I have a hard enough time hiring skilled 3D printing engineers. North Korea is gonna.
You put it very well.
So I think that will be some time, but definitely in the future, right? It's going to be just like computers. Back in the day, there was no real bad actors, but now you have genuine, cybersecurity concerns. So it will get to that point, but
not for a while.
Not for a while, yeah.
So if one were an entrepreneur and they wanted to enter the 3D printing space, how would you recommend they do it?
Oh, wow. That's I think that's a really personal thing. I mean, on the entrepreneur side, because I think my statement would be pick a segment or an idea in 3D printing that like really you're passionate about, because entrepreneurship is so difficult that unless
no, that's a great point. Of course, if you want to create construction equipment, you better be passionate about construction equipment.
Right. So it's like, if you really want to build houses with 3D printers, great, do that. I mean, no problem. There's a lot of, I mean, if you really like software, there's tons of space in software for 3D printing. If you really like aerospace, there's tons of space in that as well. So I think there's pretty open market.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate it. And
thank you. Yeah.
Do you have any parting thoughts for our viewers? You want to leave a website for them to go to, or any way we can plug your business?
Well, sure. Yeah, I know. Well, I think our website is all in Japanese, but it's 3dpc.co.jp if they're interested. And yeah. And any questions about 3D printing and anything like that, yeah, you can send an email and then we can process it. So.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on today, and this has been a fantastic episode. So you stay safe in these crazy times, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, our pleasure.
Mm-hmm.